Welcome back to the tutorial for lesson number 6. Picking up where we left off, we turn now to the Viking invasions. Now in various literature, you will see these peoples identified either as Vikings or raider pirates, but also as the Norse or Northmen from the north, or as Ostmen, which are individuals that come from the east. These peoples probably originated from what is today Scandinavia. Seen here is the Osberg ship, built in the early 9th century. Originally used as a sailing vessel, but later repurposed as a burial ship for a prominent woman who died in 834. Now when we speak of the Viking raids, these were quite extensive at the time. This map gives a good idea of the routes followed by the Vikings near the end of the first millennium. Note how they are traveling around all the edges of Europe and Asia. Not only did these peoples raid the coastal areas, but some of them decided to settle there. As seen here, we can see the settlements of the Vikings. Note the progressive time frame, with the various colors indicating the different times at which these settlements were founded. Also note the areas in green. These are sections where it is known that Viking raids occurred. However, there is no archaeological evidence of long-term settlements. As a result, Viking artifacts have been found in Ireland, Russia, and North America, and also Irish artifacts have been found thousands of kilometers away from Ireland, perhaps stolen or transported by the Vikings. These Viking sailors also traveled across the ocean, eventually landing in Newfoundland. Seen here is a reconstruction of a Viking settlement, which would have existed somewhere around 1000 CE. Vikings set up colonies in Ireland, England, Scotland, Iceland, and Greenland. As the settlement in Newfoundland indicates, they also reached North America before Columbus. We turn now to Egil's saga for more information concerning the Viking raids. Egil himself was born in Iceland in the early 10th century. He participated in Viking raids throughout Norway, Sweden, Denmark, the East Baltic Islands, England, Saxony, and North Germany. He was a fierce raider, a fine poet, with a sense of ethics. He is reported to have died in 990 at the age of 80, apparently from natural causes. The saga itself is a hagiography and attributed to Snorri Sturluson, an Icelandic poet who lived in the 13th century. Perhaps contributing to the amount of time between Egil's life and his story is the fact that Iceland itself was only literate from the 12th century onward. Seen here is an image from the 17th century depicting Egil in manuscript of Egil's saga. In an extract of the saga referring to Egil's uncle. When Thorald was about 20 years old, he made up his mind to go on a Viking expedition, so his father gave him a longship. Eyvind and Obyr joined him with another longship and a good number of men, and they spent the summer plundering. There was plenty of loot, so each man got a good share. That's how things were for a number of years. Every summer they'd go on Viking expeditions, and every winter they would stay home with their families and parents. Thorald brought his parents a lot of valuable things. This refers to Egil's uncle. Now when referring to himself, in the spring they started getting a big longship ready. Once it was manned, they went plundering that summer in the Baltic. They captured a great amount of loot and fought many good battles. One day they put in near a large estuary that lay beneath a vast area of forest. They decided to go ashore and divide into groups, each of them 12 strong. They went into the forest, and it wasn't long before they came to the settlements, where they started pillaging and killing. Some people made a run for it and got away, but no one fought back. Late in the day, Thorald sounded the horn and called his men down to the ship. Egil's saga goes on to tell that Egil did not return to his ship, but had in fact been captured during the raid. Although in the first instance we see Egil's uncle as depicting the idealized life of the raider, we see with Egil himself that this life was fraught with danger. There also exist writings from Lindisfarne of the Viking raids. The following example is from the late 8th century and is a letter from Alcuin. Now that I am away from you, the distress of your suffering fills me daily with deep grief. When heathens desecrated God's sanctuaries and poured the blood of saints within the compass of the altar, destroyed the house of our hope, trampled the bodies of the saints in God's temple like animal dung in the streets. What security is there for the churches of Britain if St. Cuthbert with so great a throng of saints will not defend its own? It is believed that during this period Lindisfarne was under attack from Viking raiders. This tombstone found at Lindisfarne perhaps depicts the raiders in question. Within the late 8th, early 9th century, raids in Ireland, especially on monasteries, were happening in order to plunder liturgical objects for trade. Remember that many of these were of high quality and often made of expensive materials such as gold. The first raid in Ireland was in 795 at Lambay Island off the coast of Dublin, then Inishmurray, Inishbofin, and Skellig Michael. From the year 830 onwards, raids moved inland by river, onto Glendow, Kildare, Kells, and then to the interior settlements. However, at the same time, Viking settlements at Dublin, Waterford, Wicklow, Cork, and Limerick become Ireland's first towns. The Vikings brought with them the innovative practices of farming and animal husbandry, and they also introduced money to Ireland. Seen here is a map of the first wave of Viking raids on Ireland. The black markers indicate where monasteries were attacked before 837, along with the dates respectively, while the red markers indicate Viking encampments. Also on the right, the money that was introduced. The principal question that this raises is, do the Viking raids cause the end of the golden age of Celtic Christianity? Although this is a common charge, this does not paint the full picture. There are some indications of a decline in zeal and a loss of original vision within the Celtic churches and monasteries by the beginning of the 9th century. This includes a wide accommodation to secular culture, the lay holding of church offices, offices as inheritance, and don't forget, the monasteries are very, very wealthy. There is also evidence in the Annals of Ulster that waves of plague are occurring in Ireland across the second half of the 7th century. Furthermore, intertribal warfare is common at this period. Some Celtic, especially Irish groups, actually ally with the Viking invaders to oppose other alliances in Ireland. Some Vikings during this period also intermarry with the Irish and settle permanently. Others still continue the raids throughout much of the 9th century. And finally, others encourage trade. The Vikings participate in and develop trends already underway within Ireland. I invite you to consider all of this information within the paradox of continuity and discontinuity. Although the Viking raids usher in dramatic change for the Celtic people, this does not mean that there is no continuity from before the time that they begin, nor does this indicate that the influx of population and the settlement by the Vikings is necessarily harmful to culture overall. With that, we come to the end of this section. Join me for part 3, where we will be examining the reforms and changes within Celtic Christianity. The link is below in the description. I'll see you in just a moment.